Supplemente oder auch Zusatzfuttermittel.
According to the feed legislation, supplements, also known as additional feed or supplementary feed, are feed additives with a higher concentration of certain nutrients compared to a complete feed. A complete feed thus covers the daily requirements, and if there is an increased requirement, certain nutrients can then be supplemented with the additional feed or supplement.
5 groups of supplements are relevant for horses. In the case of amino acids, the first limiting ones are essential. These are lysine, methionine, and threonine.
These must be available in sufficient quantities in the diet because the horse cannot produce them itself. And without these 3, all other amino acids are irrelevant because the other 3 can only be synthesized with these 3. Then there are the omega-3 fatty acids. Even with the omega-3 fatty acids, the horse cannot synthesize them itself. That's why they have to be added to the diet, and the omega-3 fatty acids are very important antioxidants that help the horse's body fight against any kind of inflammation. Then there are the herbal ingredients. These are, for example, herbs that are important for keeping the horse healthy. It could be chamomile, it could be hops, it could be oregano. Each herb also has a certain health effect on the horse.
Jedes Kraut hat auch für das Pferd eine gewisse gesundheitliche Wirkung.
Then there are other active ingredients such as collagen. In the example of collagen, collagen is not necessarily present in the horse's diet. But if my horse has problems in the knee, for example, or in other joints, collagen can help to rebuild the synovial fluid and thus simply make the joint more stable and also rid it of inflammation.
Neu zu bilden und so das Gelenk einfach stabiler zu machen und auch von Entzündungen zu befreien.
And finally, the microorganisms. The best known microorganisms are the so-called living aids, which can support the gut, for example. They help the positive bacteria in the gut to be strengthened so that the gut can simply work properly.
Dass der Darm einfach vernünftig arbeiten kann.
Which supplement is the right choice for my horse and when?
Die Wahl des richtigen Produktes.
The choice of the right product naturally depends very much on what I want to compensate for in my horse and where the horse's nutritional deficits are. This could be the muscles, for example. If I have problems with my horse's muscles simply not being as pronounced as I would like despite training, then it is probably due to a lack of amino acids.
Liegt es wahrscheinlich an einem Mangel an Aminosäuren?
And then I have to specifically add these amino acids to the horse. Whether I choose a single preparation or a mixed preparation also depends a bit on what kind of problem my horse has or what I want to support. However, you can say that a mixed preparation always has advantages over single preparations because it is rarely due to just one nutrient.
Nur an einem Nährstoff liegt.
Usually, you have to feed a combination of different nutrients. For example, biotin in the biotin preparation for stable hooves. It is very important to also feed methionine, zinc, copper, manganese, and vitamin B6, because only then can the biotin be properly incorporated into the hoof.
Richtig in den Huf eingearbeitet werden kann, sozusagen.
Supplements are available in 3 forms: powder, liquid, or pellet.
Whether I take a pellet, a liquid preparation, or a powder depends a bit on my preferences. The advantage of liquid in preparations and pellets is that the horses simply absorb it better, because powder can also be distributed very quickly through the air by blowing it into the stable. The advantage of a liquid preparation is that it can also be injected into the mouth with a syringe if necessary.
Verteilt werden kann. Bei einem Flüssigpräparat hat man halt den Vorteil, dass man es zur Not auch über eine Maulspritze ins Maul spritzen kann.
That's always a bit more difficult with pellets, but the pellets are usually a bit tastier.
The feed advisor, the vet, and last but not least, a blood count can initially help with the selection of the right supplementary feed.
And then in many cases, you just have to try it out.
And now a few examples of targeted supplement feeding.
If I notice that my horse has an increased requirement, for example, if it is very susceptible to illness in the transition from winter to summer, if it simply starts coughing when its coat changes, then the problem is often a vitamin deficiency. I can then feed targeted vitamin supplements for 4 to 8 weeks. If I have a growing horse, I can feed phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium in a targeted manner.
Calcium und Magnesium zufüttern.
If I have a horse that gets a bit clammy in the transition from fall to winter, or has problem with its joints due to its age, I can also support it with devil's claw or collagen hyaluronic acid. If I notice an increased need, then I can feed the horse in a very targeted way over 6 to 8 weeks.
Erhöhten Bedarf merke, dann kann ich das wirklich ganz gezielt mal eine Kur über 6, 8 Wochen dem Pferd zufüttern.
There are few supplements that are fed continuously. This is mainly a biotin supplement because biotin needs 6 months before it reaches the hoof and really makes a change. After all, the hoof has to renew itself, so to speak. And with nerve products, you can also assume that you feed it continuously. All other supplements are actually intended to bridge the increased need for a short period of time.
Alle anderen Supplemente sind eigentlich dafür gedacht, dass man den erhöhten Bedarf für eine kurze Zeit überbrückt.
Supplements can also help with health problems.
If the horse has health problems and is being monitored by the vet, then you can of course choose certain active ingredients to help the horse in consultation with the vet. If I have a tendon problem, for example, I feed a classic combination of collagen, MSM, hyaluronic acid, and contratinin. The problem with joints and tendon disorders is actually that the blood circulation in the joints, and especially in the lower part of the leg, is not that great.
Ist tatsächlich, dass die Durchblutung in den Gelenken und gerade im unteren Bereich des Beines nicht ganz so toll ist.
There just aren't that many large vessels. Basically, it's just this one large vessel that goes down into the hoof and then branches out again. And that's why it's very, very difficult to transport nutrients into it over a long period of time.
Sehr schwierig, da langanhaltend Nährstoffe hinzutransportieren.
How exactly do supplements cause changes in the horse's organism?
If you want to go into the effects of supplements in a little more detail, I would like to pick out 2. The first is the issue of muscles, because that is simply the main issue for most horse owners, that the muscles simply don't develop in training in the way that you actually intended. And despite training, the muscle growth simply doesn't materialize.
Und trotz Training einfach der Muskelzuwachs ein bisschen ausbleibt.
Here you should feed amino acids, the first limiting ones, i.e. methionine, lysine, and threonine. These are the 3 that are simply the most important. If you feed and train these specifically, then the muscles simply have enough nutrients to grow. In the best case scenario, you can also add L-carnitine, which is an amino acid that positively influences the energy metabolism in the muscle, so that the muscle simply has enough power to do work, so that it doesn't tire so quickly, and so that it can also grow.
Power hat, auch Arbeit zu verrichten, nicht ganz so schnell zu ermüden und dann auch wachsen zu können.
The second example is the topic of nerves. The classic example is magnesium. Magnesium inhibits the transmission of stimuli from the brain, so to speak. This means that when a horse sees something that frightens it, the nerve pathways from the eye to the brain say, hey, here's something you need to be careful about. Magnesium prevents the stimulus from being transmitted to the brain, so to speak, or prevents it from being transmitted so strongly.
Dass dieser Reiz weitergeleitet wird zum Gehirn oder halt nicht so stark weitergeleitet wird.
That's why magnesium is fed to very nervous horses. The second option is something herbal, for example, lemon balm or hops. These stop the stimulus from developing, so to speak. Or you could add L-tryptophan, which is an amino acid that is involved in the production of serotonin. And serotonin is simply a natural equine calming mechanism that can also naturally calm the horse and support its willingness to perform.
Eigener Beruhigungsmechanismus, der das Pferd einfach auch natürlich beruhigen kann und die Leistungsbereitschaft unterstützen kann.
The dosage, possible interactions, or their influence on medication must be discussed in detail with the manufacturer or vet.
Another important point is, of course, the relevance of supplements to doping. In other words, I always have to check whether the supplement I'm feeding is doping relevant or not. The manufacturers are obliged to state on the packaging whether there is a withdrawal period or not. However, I would advise everyone to double-check with the official anti-doping catalog. Enter the active ingredients once to make sure I'm not missing anything here.
Einzugeben, sicher zu sein, dass ich hier nichts verpasse.
Because the bottom line is that the rider is responsible, not the feed manufacturer. That's why it's better to have checked once too often whether everything is safe and always adhere to the carcass time.
Targeted and supplementary. Supplements can almost become little helpers. Your horse is fussy and doesn't like to eat supplements. Then I have 5 tips for you. Firstly, introduce the supplements slowly. Start with a small amount and increase it steadily until you have reached the full amount. Secondly, spread the daily ration over as many rations as possible so that the proportion is not so high. Thirdly, mix the supplement into his favorite muesli or tasty mesh so that he doesn't even notice it. Fourthly, try to choose a pellet if possible, as these usually taste better to horses than a powder. And fifthly, if nothing else really works, you can also dissolve the supplements in a large syringe and give them directly into the mouth.